We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. It's Split Zone Duo. I'm Alex Kirshner, joined by my co-host, Richard Johnson. Richard, how are you?
Doing well. Getting ready to cruise right into the fourth.
I have a question. How many hot dogs do you think you've eaten in your lifetime?
Oh, aggregate number of hot dogs. Okay. I would say I probably eat hot dogs 4 to 5 times a year in adulthood.
I think that's a reasonable estimate, but probably 2 per.
Right. No, I'll throw 3 down. I'm a glizzy goon. I'll throw 3 down in a sitting. Now, when I was younger, I actually ate a lot more hot dogs just because very like cheap and easy, like crappy college dinner, or crappy high school dinner or what have you. If I was home alone. I'm gonna go definitely triple digits. Definitely triple digit hot dogs all time. I would say closer to 100 than 200, but definitely in the triple digits.
I think I'm solidly into the triple digits as well. I did this calculation sometime last year, although I've waffled on it. But I would say that as a kid, I was probably having hot dogs 10-ish times a year minimum, and then you get into like Little League baseball and it's like you've got hot dogs probably every weekend after games.
Man, maybe
I would say I've probably had
200.
I think I've probably had at least 300 hot dogs in my life. But sound off, Split Zone Duo audience, just in your own heads, or if you want to let us know. I do intend to have at least 3 to 6 this upcoming weekend, as it is.
But
4th of July time.
I'm more of a burger guy than a dog guy. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm much more of a burger. If I've got the option of one or the other at a cookout, I am more of a cheeseburger guy.
Yeah, I mean, the burger is more of the main course. I think most reasonable adults would agree with that. Anyway, we're talking about hot dogs. We're going to talk about hot seats. One of our favorite things to do at Split Zone Duo is celebrate coaches getting fired and families being uprooted from their lives.
Yes, my favorite part of the sport. What can I say?
One of the things that we just really love here because we're cold in that way. We're going to go into this hot seat season, into this football season, by sort of talking about the coach landscape a certain way, which is to have kind of a confidence draft, if you will. So here's how we're going to do it. We have set aside 23 active FBS head coaches. And we have each ranked these 23 coaches without comparing notes. So I don't know what you said. From 1 to 23, with 23 being the likeliest that this upcoming season is their last season in their current job. Whether that's because of a firing or retirement, what have you. Did not include getting hired away. We'll get to that kind of as we get into the season. I did not include on this list any coaches who are in their 3rd year or fewer on the job, with the exception of Trent Dilfer, because that felt too obvious. I did not put Hugh Freeze on here for this reason.
Well, I was going to say that's probably the other one that's a little obvious.
We perhaps could have put him on here, but just to give you a general sense of kind of the way that we outline this pool of guys, this is not us saying that nobody else in the sport will get fired or will retire after this year. But I do think that as we go through these names, you'll find that this collection of guys has the most likely firings and retirings that you would think of, or that someone in the industry would think of at this point in time. And we're recording this just in a couple of days right before July 4th, when, we're pretty much in vacation season for most people in college football. Also, not saying that inclusion on this list means you're doomed. While we're doing disclaimers, last year's biggest preseason hot seat guys nationally mostly got to stick around another year. Billy Napier's still here. Dave Aranda's still here. In fact, Dave Aranda's not even on this list that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I would imagine if Billy Napier is still Florida's coach this time next year, he would not be on this list.
Probably not. And I think there are only a handful of guys at the top of my list who I would say are odds on to be in their last year right now. But, this list is going to include hopefully a decent chunk of the people that we see moving on at the end of this year. we pretty much know that there are going to be 20-ish turned over FBS jobs. I'll note, by the way, that this is, as the first episode of the Eyes list for this year, the kind of episode that, for the most part, we put behind our paywall for our paying subscribers at www.splitzoneduo.com. We would love to have your support. It helps us make the show, pays a lot of people that help us make it, and is the best way to support this operation if you value this type of podcasting. So we're going to get into it. Richard, I think the one thing that's worth talking about before we go through these names and say we think this is the likeliest or we think this is the least likely coach to be moving on after this year is to talk about the house settlement angle of all of this. Because I've heard, from various people, interesting and not always uniform theories of how it's going to affect the coaching carousel that every power conference athletic department, save for maybe a few, is going $18 in cash and $2.5 million in new scholarship money out the door this year to pay players. How do you think that's going to affect what we see as we get into carousel season?
I think you may have seen the gunpowder held dry last year more than this year. I think this year, I think this year, I am more willing to bet that teams will do the thing if you're on the precipice, whereas teams were not willing to do the thing last year.
I think back to 2020, which was the first year that we did this podcast, and I remember having conversations, you, me, Godfrey, like, schools aren't going to pay massive 8-figure buyouts while higher education is in chaos. And then South Carolina fired Will Muschamp, and it was a pretty hot carousel season at the end of that year. And then 2021 was one of the wildest we can remember. So but
I think
lean in your direction.
The difference now is like the house settlement is settled. Like now we know. Now
you have cost certainty. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of schools that might determine that they can't afford big buyouts right now, but I think there are a lot that are going to see costs, or at least a few that will see cost certainty and say, okay, we can deal with that. So Richard, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go alphabetically, and we're going to start with Troy Calhoun at the Air Force Academy. So we each rank these guys again 1 to 23. 23 on the list is you think it is the likeliest person on the list to go, and 1 on the list means the least likely to go via retirement or firing. I think in Calhoun's case, a firing would be pretty unlikely. I'll tell you what I have him. Where do you have Troy Calhoun on your 1 to 23?
I have him 2.
I have him 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We have consensus.
Yeah, consensus. I think we got some consensus on the next 2 guys as well.
Well, it'll be interesting. Let's talk about Air Force though, because I put Troy Calhoun on this list because he has been there 18 years and just had, I believe, his second worst season in that job.
Yeah, I was going to say it's either his 3rd or 4th losing season.
So he definitely qualifies for what we like to call the eyes list here at Split Zone Duo in terms of just like, I'd open my eyes to that. I keep my eyes on that. But I think Air Force is going to be a lot better this year. It was pretty clear that they were just really down in the matriculation cycle last year. A lot of young guys who had not repped that offense a lot, and there were a lot of fumbles and sloppy play. Like I said, this does not account for the possibility of getting an offer. I mean, years ago, he was a pretty popular name, kind of putting himself forward for other gigs. Haven't heard so much of that lately, but the guy first on my list alphabetically is also last on my list as far as a guy moving on. Next on the list alphabetically, Sonny Cumbie, Louisiana Tech.
He's my 23, which is the most likely, I think, to be out of a job. I mean, I'm quite shocked he's still in the job. Frankly,
same. He's my 20. So good to see that we have some consensus so far. I do think it's astonishing that he's still here. This is a Mike Leach guy who they bring in here to inject some excitement after firing a pretty decent long-term guy in Skip Holtz. And he has gone from 73rd to 89th to 129th in offensive SP+. And at the end of last year, the AD was giving press releases about getting involved in offensive philosophy changes, which to me just screams good goddamn luck. Dead man walking does not look good. Also, they are in line very possibly to get an invitation to the Sun Belt, which would put them back with some old rivals. And that would be a classic, like, put your best foot forward, fire the coach, clean slate type of moment. So I'm with you on Sonny Cuppy.
Yeah, it just, like I said, I kind of surprised he's still here, man. I just did not think that was going to be the case.
Nor did I. All right, we're going to see.
Especially because the year before was a fire coordinator's year.
Yeah, it's odd that he's still in the job. And I think it would have cost them $1.6 million to fire him at the end of last year, according to USA Today's review of his contract. I can understand why they wouldn't have wanted to do that, especially with some cost uncertainty coming up about House, but it would make a lot of sense to me. The thing that could save them is, I think their Vegas over-under this year has them at like 6.5, like 6 or 7 win team. If he did make a bowl, maybe it's awkward to fire a guy who finally gets to a bowl in year 4. But I tend to agree with you that I think we are, as we sit here today at the midpoint of summer, probably looking at a change at Louisiana Tech based on a couple conversations that I've had and just my own view of the situation. Third, Trent Dilfer.
22. I imagine.
Okay, he's 21 for me.
Yeah. I imagine it's pretty high on your list as well.
Tell me about why, though, in case you haven't listened to any of the significant Split Zone Duo podcast recordings that we've done about UAB and Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not working. I mean, it's just it hasn't worked. It's not working. And I think you're probably going to have to press the reset button after this. 4-8 year 1, 3-9 year 2. In
Vegas
an
total is 4.5 this year, by the way.
Okay, I didn't even know that.
With juice to the under. With juice to the under.
Yeah, I did not even know that. And the Vegas win total is 4.5 this year. So yeah, it's just not working here. And I get if you just want to just hit the reset button and move on.
Continuing alphabetically, we're going to the Atlantic Coast Conference. We're going to Raleigh, North Carolina. We're going to NC State. We're going to Dave Doran.
I have Dave Doran 11, and I actually
have him 9.
Think he probably should be higher, closer to 23, I should say.
So interesting. Walk me through your thought process there.
This guy and the next guy who we will get to are the two guys that I actually think should be higher than I have them. Let's start with Doran. I am worried that Doran is at a position where you think, like game may have passed him by type sort of thing. Is he a wartime consigliere for this era of college football? And I will say, I think there's going to be a really interesting dynamic at NC State specifically because they bring Will Wade in, and Will Wade for basketball, and Will Wade is going to do, everything. Will Wade is going to turn over every stone. Will Wade is going to be very out and about in public, doing all kinds of stuff.
He's going to want house money too.
He's going to want house money too. Yes, he will. And so I sit and I think, I don't know if, let's say Will Wade comes in, does really well, and upturns a bunch of apple carts. If people say I think the football team should be a little bit modernized as well. Remember, they did fire the basketball coach who went to the Final Four, which is the reason Will Wade is the basketball coach right now. Like it's not like they are willing to sit idly by forever. I know that Dave Doran has done what NC State's peak probably is, which is 8-ish wins, 9-ish wins. I think Dave Doran.
He's been a very solid coach for a very long time there.
And if you're NC State, you want solid. You need solid. But I don't know if they are going to think that.
I'm kind of like you. So, like I said, I have him at 9 on my list. And I also kind of thought he should be higher because I was thinking about the Will Wade piece that you just mentioned. I was also thinking about what's happening in their neighborhood. Like North Carolina just did something that, while I don't think it's going to work, it's certainly splashy. It certainly has the potential to generate excitement and fundraising dollars. You have pretty exciting things relative to Duke football happening at Duke, with Manny Diaz doing a nice job opening the checkbook to get Darian Mensah in from Tulane to play quarterback. And you know how these things can go. right? Like you keep up with the Joneses a little bit. And I don't think NC State has a lot to be massively excited about at the moment. But are they looking to do a low 8-figure buyout for one of the best coaches that they've ever had? That's why I had a hard time putting him higher on the list. I'm looking forward to like legitimately getting some local color on this when we are in Raleigh. By the way, August 23rd, Sports Podcast Festival with our pals Ovies and Giglio and with Godfrey, Matt Brown, a whole bunch of other people. I want to get some local feedback on how they're feeling about this because I think it's a hard one to make heads or tails of. But I'm kind of with you that I felt like he should be higher on my list than he actually was. And Sonny Dykes.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes the same way. So I have Sonny Dykes at 6, and I don't believe that.
I had him at 3, and I kind of wished I could put him higher, but I had him at 3.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not. I can't stand behind my own here. Last year is a better year than I think they get credit for. They
agreed.
Look, the Big 12 was an absolute mess, as it always is. We know how that works. But besides a very close loss to Baylor, like they got it going in the right direction the back half of the season. Stacked some good
100%.
wins. Yeah, stacked some good wins, did some good things the back half of the season, and ended the bowl game, which we're counting because it supports our argument here, in that they had a good close to last season. So
he has a quarterback he likes too. He definitely has a quarterback he likes in Josh Hoover. Granted, players come and go quickly in this sport, but I think that for this to even be a conversation, he'd have to have a really, really, really lousy year. And I don't see a reason why they wouldn't be in the mix among the Big 12 teams that could possibly win the league, which granted, that's like 8 or 10 teams as you look at it preseason every year now. But I think he seems to have kind of quietly recovered pretty nicely from the very underwhelming follow-up to the national championship, which was ugly and which did make you wonder, like, how quickly could you fire a guy who took a 500-ish team to the national championship his first year?
Yeah, I think that's fair. So I have him at 6, and I don't know. I don't love that it's 6. I think it should be a little bit higher, like I said, but it's a hard tenure to place as far as where it's going.
All right, I'm going to be interested to see where on this list we start to diverge, because I can't imagine we're going to go 23 for 23, being pretty close. Tony Elliott at the University of Virginia.
Very high.
Where for you?
21.
Interesting. That's higher. That's a bit higher than me. I have him at 14.
I think Virginia is one of the low-key bad situation teams that we don't really consider how bad it is. I mean, it is very bad there. 3-7, 3-9, 5-7, 3 straight years.
It's an improvement.
To go from 3-7 to 3-9 to 5-7.
Not all 2-win improvements are created equal. I understand that, but one
of those wins was an FCS team, by the way. They've only beaten Virginia Tech like twice since like 2000 or something. The Commonwealth Cup is a Wikipedia page. You know how we love a one-sided color Wikipedia rivalry page?
We do.
That is a one-sided. There is a lot of purple on that Wikipedia page. I'll tell you that right now.
And all purple since Tony Elliott got there. The last win for UVA was in 2019. That was a Justin Fuente special. Here's why I only have him at 14, which granted is near the top of the list. Could he be this year's guy who just gets to exist for a while because his school has bigger problems? Because they got big ones at all levels. Like they just made, for one thing, their president just had to resign or chose to resign under immense pressure from the Trump administration, which I'm not going to get into in detail, but it's a 5-alarm fire story for higher education. They just lost like a legendary baseball coach to Mississippi State. They just had to pay pretty splashy dollars to get a basketball coach, Ryan Odom from UMBC. Funny because UMBC, of course, that's the coach who beat them as a 16 seed all those years ago in the tournament. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with house settlements. Carla Williams, the AD, gave a statement that suggested that they might just be giving all the money to football and men's basketball, which would, of course, be good for Tony. But maybe that's hard to pull off at UVA because UVA has a ton of sports that they care about. If they're a 6-7 win team, which is what Vegas thinks they are, you gonna fire that guy, given everything you got going on, athletically, university administration wise? I guess the answer is it's very possible, but I actually put him lower on my list than I thought I was when I really dug into what's been going on at UVA.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think you need a turnaround here. I understand how if they do a 6-6, you're like, is a bowl game and another loss to Virginia Tech. Like, what is anybody can do that. Like, I can see how that would be the mindset of the administration there.
Yeah, could be the calculus. Also, very much worth noting that the whole like federal attack on UVA right now has the support of some UVA donors, and it's in a very much like rollback diversity initiatives vein. And Tony Elliott's black, and far be it from me to ignore that when we're looking at like the recent power dynamics that have played out and gotten UVA's president out of there. I think that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're talking about the football coach. Because the coach carousel, turns out, is not post-racial. Couldn't believe that. Kirk Ferentz. I got him low, Richard. I got him low on my list. I have him at 6.
Yeah, I have him at 4 because I think they're going to be pretty good this year.
On the one hand, I think when he goes, we're not going to get a lot of heads up. He will be talking proudly about how this is his program and he likes working with the people he works with. He'll be there for years to come, and then he'll just be gone one day. But I think he's going to be there for at least another year or two. He is 70 in August. They have been disappointing lately. There are like the things that would point toward him going. Like Gary Barta is no longer there to let him do whatever he wants. Beth Getz, the newish athletic director, was the person who more or less made him say goodbye to Brian as offensive coordinator. And so I guess if they flop this year with Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State, who should be the best quarterback that he's ever had at Iowa, then maybe it would accelerate. But he seems like a guy who's going to be there for a while. Also, he's back on his promoting family members game. His son-in-law is now their GM and chief of staff at Iowa, which is the kind of thing that you do when you're asserting your control over your own program. So I think Kirk's around for a little bit longer.
Yes, I do too. I like I said, running quarterback in an Iowa offense. Yeah, I would like to see it, and I think they're going to be pretty decent this year.
I did hear from a friend of ours that Kirk Ferentz hates West Coast games and does not enjoy the new geographic shape of the Big Ten.
Get in line, Kirk.
Yeah,
I don't think you're on an island there, big guy.
I think that's just an extra little factoid, probably not the kind of thing that pushes you over the edge. But all right, so we have more or less agreement on Ferentz. Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State.
I'm going to go 3 in that I buy some of the changes that they're making administratively here, with him kicking in money, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, I put him at 11, which was me giving up on this one. Clearly, tenure was on its deathbed at Thanksgiving time last year, and they worked it out. And this is a marriage that I'm just not going to try to completely understand. And that the couple people that I asked about it gave me kind of contradictory takes on. So I just stuck them at 11, kind of in the middle of my list. I do think that if they should happen to be even close to as bad this year as they were last year, then I just can't imagine how you would keep him. Like if they won 2 in the Big 12, like, or maybe even 3, I feel like that would have to do it. But he's a hard man to stamp out. So I imagine that we're going to have to learn more as we go on Mike Gundy. Want to congratulate listener Casey R, by the way, for winning a set of tires as part of Nokian Tires' monthly drawing for Split Zone Duo listeners. You can enter to win your own set of tires at nokiantires.com/SZD. That's tires with a Y. The website also has tire tips, product info, a dealer locator, so you can find Nokian tires near you. Appreciate everyone who entered this month. Helps the show, shows enthusiasm for the show to our sponsors. We had a great turnout to start year 4 of our partnership with Nokian Tires. Greatly appreciate them being part of what we do. Richard, going to a place that you can't drive to from most of the United States and the University of Hawaii.
I would
Timmy Chang.
say you can't drive to Hawaii from all of Hawaii.
In fact, you really can't drive to Hawaii from anywhere other than Hawaii, or even from parts of Hawaii to other parts of Hawaii, if
Exactly.
we want to be technical about it. Yeah.
I have Tim Chang at a 15 here, but I would like it to be higher personally. But the only reason why is quite literally, do they have the money to do it? It's one of those.
He's cheap. He's cheap to fire. I think it's 6 figures.
Okay. Do
Granted,
they have
it's
the money
Hawaii.
to do it?
Yeah. I have him at 18. So someone said to me, he's finished. Like, just he's finished. Not he's finished if they win X, but just feels he's finished in general. It's a weird one all around, though. A little hard to make heads or tails of, because you remember what he took over, basically a toxic waste site from Todd Graham. We called it year -1 on the show, which I guess would make this only year 2 for him. But the progress has been, I mean, not really there on the field. 3-10, 5-8, 5-7. By SP Plus, they're worse than they were under Graham, though obviously Graham was bad in other ways. State Senate hearing bad, as we like to say. So they have a new athletic director finally, after a pretty long and tumultuous process. And while it is Hawaii and they don't have a lot of money, he is cheap to fire, like by any other college football standard, even G5 standards. I think it's hard because I don't really know who you're going to get to take the job there. Like, everyone knows what he took over. Everyone knows he's a beloved alum playing in a high school sports caliber complex. But it does seem like this is probably going to be a 4th year in a row of not very good, and he's cheap to fire, and they got a new AD. So I have Timmy Chang pretty high on my list at 18 out of 23.
Yeah, I do. I went and looked at I think it went 5-7 last year with 2 FCS wins. And they get to play
great.
They get to play the 2 FCS because of the extra week kind of thing. Man, it's why. It's why. And that's why you say, like, yeah, I know it's cheap, but it doesn't mean they can do it.
We're going to see difficult times, as they pretty often are, as they have almost always been, except for when Timmy Chang has been the quarterback at Hawaii. So we're going to see what happens as the carousel gets rolling. Baton Rouge, Richard. Brian Kelly.
Cole Brandon erasure. Unbelievable. Brian Kelly. So Brian Kelly, who was in lockstep with Billy Napier, who was in lockstep with Lincoln Riley. They're all 3 in my thing right next to each other. Boom, boom, boom. So I have Brian Kelly at 8. And it's because I have them at these spots because I think that it's really easy for them to turn the tide. Not in like easy in that, like, if their teams are good and live up to the upside potential, then they're off the hot seat. I think all 3 of them.
I also have them almost exactly next to each other, just with Ferentz in the middle of them. But I have Brian Kelly at 7. I have asked several people about this, both in agent world and trusted LSU observer world, and have heard things that I think could point in different directions, but I'm going to share a couple general sentiments. Number 1, Scott Woodward, the AD, empowered athletic director, probably would get to hire a second coach. They have won natties in baseball,
Right.
women's basketball,
Which is
and
why
gymnastics. 3 other sports that they really care about. And he hired all 3 of those coaches, even though the gymnastics coach, Jay Clark, was in the program for a long time before that. So on the one hand, it's not like it's an AD who has to stick by his man because their fates are intertwined. I think he's generally been a good AD, and they'd let him take another crack at it. But also, I think they have a chance to be really good this year. I mean, granted, we thought, with the talent that they have most years, you're going to think that. But I think it's possible that this is a playoff team, and then obviously you're not making the move. And the buyout is just...
Well, not obviously.
I mean,
somebody's going to do it one year, but
someone will do it one year. But this is in the zone where the buyout is so big, tens of millions of dollars, that it would just be a lot to swallow in this economy. One of our mutual friends, Richard, did tell me that if you say one more time, Brian Kelly didn't forget how to coach, he's going to send you a VHS copy of, I think it was the Arkansas game last year, to demonstrate to you that you need to update your priors on Brian Kelly. Or actually, it was A&M in Florida.
I have a feeling I know who this person is. And Brian Kelly didn't forget how to coach.
Well, check your mailbox. I'm gonna give him your address, so you're gonna know. He's gonna know exactly where to send it. Mike Loxley at my alma mater, the University of Maryland. I got him at 13.
Yeah, this is another that I had 12 and thought I should probably have higher.
Okay, we're pretty close on this one too. Then, there's no fan support. There's just no fan support, and at some point, a new athletic director probably wants a fresh coat of paint. Remember who this new AD is? We talked about it on a CFB lunch break recently. He's one of those business guys from the Atlanta Braves. And I think that kind of underlines the need for revenue streams and to sell tickets and to juice fundraising where you can. And what's one way to do that? It's by hiring a new coach. Mike Loxley can coach ball. He is a Broyles Award winner under Nick Saban, but his central value prop at Maryland is always going to be DMV recruiting, where he somewhat levels them up. But guess what? You can pay players now, and recruiting based on relationships and personal charm, while definitely not dead, is not what it used to be. And I could see Maryland's athletic director saying, this is about dollars and cents, and it's been perfectly okay, but mediocre for a long time. So that's that.
Didn't they get a commit from like the best player in this year's class?
Next year's for now.
Excuse
No,
me.
they have a major 5-star, one of the top handful of 5-stars defensive ends for 2026. And they have a quarterback for this year who I think is probably going to start week 1, Malik Washington, 4-star local guy who they're excited about. I know I've heard more excitement about him than I've ever heard about a Maryland commit who actually committed. There was probably more about Dwayne Haskins before he flipped to Ohio State like a decade ago. But this is it's a hard situation. Also, they are under a lot of pressure to spend house money on basketball after they lost their hoops coach to Villanova. I could see him sticking around because he's pretty well liked and he's been a good soldier for the University of Maryland while not getting a ton of support for this program. But yeah, he's at 13 for me. Could definitely see it happening. He also he got a Jets interview as Jets head coach last year. Yes. I don't know. I don't think that was ever that serious, but I'm sure that he's browsing is what I mean to get to by that.
Joe Moorhead is next. Akron Zips. I have him 14. It's just another. It's another. Do they have the money to do it more than the political will to do it, kind of thing. I could see him surfacing as an offensive coordinator somewhere next year.
Yeah, I have them at 19. All pretty similar. They're academically ineligible for a bowl. That has not happened in FBS in over a decade to any team.
I don't think they need to worry about that.
No, they don't have to worry. They do not. I think they're going to self-impose a bowl ban in other ways over the course of the season. But it kind of speaks to like how much fun can this be if you have that level of institutional support that's even possible for you to be academically ineligible for a bowl. So I got him at 19. I think he's kind of maybe the last guy on my list who I would say I'd be surprised if he were back in another year, in part because he would be a desirable offensive coordinator for a lot of different programs. Billy Napier, you already previewed where you have him.
Yeah, I have him at the 7, 8, 9 level. With again, if that team hits its potential, and I think the ceiling on it's probably something like what South Carolina did last year. Okay, there's your progress.
Yeah, I have him at 8. I want to ask you this question though, because you have a very good understanding of University of Florida politics. Is it working for him at all that there's currently nobody really in charge at the campus level of the University of Florida?
Yeah, I think if they're terrible, Scott Strickland would just do it. And I know that comes with is Scott Strickland going to keep his job, blah, 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 blah. I think the basketball program probably helps that case a little bit. So I don't necessarily think Scott is in the amount of hot water that maybe he was this time last year because of that hire certainly has turned out on the basketball court. So yeah, I think Scott would just do it.
Also, things that are working for him has DJ Lagway and unmistakable good vibes at the end of last year. They played for him.
They're going to be good on offense, like
Yeah.
unqualifiedly good on offense.
I tend to agree, though I'll review it as we get into SEC preview season. Let's stay in the Sunshine State. Let's go up north to Tallahassee. Mike Norvell.
This one might surprise you. I have Mike Norvell at 1.
1.
Yeah, I have Mike Norvell at 1.
This is our probably biggest divergence yet. Go ahead.
Probably, I would imagine, probably by orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be way too much money. Way too
Okay, so
much money.
I had a similar thought process, so I kind of get why he's that low.
It's like $60 million.
No, it's eye-watering. It's eye-watering. But I was able to justify moving it up because this is the school that has made the most noise of any school in the country about taking on a cash influx from investors that could be used.
Well, not anymore.
For something
Boise
like
just
that.
announced that they took
Actually,
cash.
Boise did. You're right. Boise jumped him in line. Boise just said explicitly, "We are doing it." Like in the last week or two, they did.
Yeah, I just don't think they're not going to go 2-10 with one FBS win over Cal by 5 points. That will never happen again. It's not going to happen this year. I think even a modest improvement to 7-5, and you're like, all right, well, you probably go into 2026 thinking you need some momentum, but I do not think there's an appetite to do it.
Man, this one's hard. I mean, I have him at 15 because I don't have much of a frame of reference for what we just saw. I mean, I almost think that 7-5, like, yeah, I mean, and so I guess it makes sense that this would be the one where we would have the biggest gap in how we feel about it. I just think Florida State makes a lot of noise about how crazy they are, financially speaking, like what they're willing to do to be competitive financially. And they did the whole dog and pony show with the ACC. They got a few extra bucks, or the prospect of a few extra bucks out of the ACC. Not that I think that is an amount of money that's determinative on, are you going to pay tens of millions to fire Mike Norvell? But also, like, he hasn't shown anything close to the ability to develop high school football players that they need to get where they want to be. And if they pulled like a 6-6 or a 7-5 this year, I guess there are different vintages of 6-6 and 7-5, but maybe this is probably I think college football is a little crazier than you do pick. Though I get why you don't think it's possible, like why you think it's exceedingly unlikely that they would pay that amount of money.
I also think it is not going to bode well for him that I think, like, how good I think Clemson's going to be, and the fact that Miami is still going to be, wily enough with its talent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a competitive neighborhood. Always is, but I think particularly at the moment. Continuing down this list alphabetically, Pat Narduzzi. Pitt.
I'm interested in where you have Pat Narduzzi. I have Pat Narduzzi quite high.
Oh, okay. Actually, cheer me up a little bit. I have him at 2. I got him really
2?
low. Dude, this is the one that I don't think they can afford.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm doing what you just did with Florida State. Now, his contract is cloudy because of Pitt's record-keeping obligations. Pitt has some funny public record stuff going on with them. I think it's kind of ridiculous. But the short answer of Pat Narduzzi's buyout is that I'm pretty sure it's more than Pitt has any appetite to pay, unless their whale donor, and they do have one. Pat Narduzzi is the Chris Bickle football coach. Unless Mr. Chris Bickle or one of Chris Bickle's really good friends decides that this is the most important thing in the goddamn world to get the money to fire Pat Narduzzi, I just don't see it. He is signed through 2030. That we know. Is Pitt, one of the real middle-class programs of the ACC, going to buy out 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30?
Is Mr. Bickle interested in potentially purchasing a baseball team across town?
Chris, hit my line if you are. I'd love to put together a group to save the Pirates. Pitt does have a new athletic director, Alan Green, from Auburn, who was not very influential at Auburn, right? And he got pushed out.
Look, but he got Auburn and also did not help himself.
I think both are true.
Yeah, double-edged sword.
So I don't see this as one of those like new sheriff in town, coach in trouble type of situations. I think if Pitt wanted to pick a slightly easier target in the near term, it would be Jeff Capel in basketball. And it's also possible that Pitt's decent this year. Like, it's not a bad roster. It's not a bad coaching staff that he has around him. I like both of his coordinators. So I think they're going to go 7-5 or 8-4. And I think they're stuck. I'd welcome being wrong about this because I think we've seen the best days, but I just don't think Pitt's going to buy out 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. I don't think they can.
Look, still, like, it's a miracle they got Cade Bell back at an offensive coordinator. You mentioned
Very fortunate.
Really
very fortunate for Pitt that, like, a good offensive coordinator. Also, this is actually nice, and I'll give this Narduzzi credit for this. It seems like this is a solid offensive coordinator who Narduzzi doesn't have a bad relationship with. That's happened multiple times at Pitt, like, and with position coaches. Like, I think that Pitt had an opportunity to make Brennan Marion, who gets talked about a lot in industry circles as one of the most innovative offensive guys in the sport. He could have been Pitt's offensive coordinator after Mark Whipple left. Now, there are reasons he wasn't. I know that him and Narduzzi weren't chummy.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's important.
That might have been for the best for all involved.
Might have been for the best for all involved. But my point is, Cade Bell comes in with a pretty fun offense that does things differently, and it seems like he gets on with Narduzzi. So he's back for another year, and like this shows growth on Pat's part. That I think Pat, like, seeded the wheel a bit of his offense last year and didn't subtweet his coordinators in the press and was just cool about it, and Pitt had a better offense. So growth. But yeah, buyout's too big. So I have him at 2.
Let's go to Arkansas next. Sam Pittman. This was one that I struggled with. I understand the whole, I understand the whole Bobby Petrino's here. Bobby Petrino is the sleeper cell to be the head coach, to be the next head coach. I know, but I don't know, man. I just, where is, I put him at, I put him at 19. I put him at 19. Right.
That's way higher than me. I had him at 10.
Yeah, right under Narduzzi.
Yeah, I had him at 10.
I just look like he's getting a little older. This could just be
he's getting a little older.
Situation.
Yeah, no, it's true. I probably should have him a little higher because of the retirement possibility. And because it's not like the buyout's that big. It's not full freight. He has a weird buyout structure that I don't think a lot of coaches have, where it's malleable based on his winning percentage aggregate at the time of the firing.
They were like on the precipice of it. I have not looked it up, but I knew that they, going into last season, they were like weirdly on the precipice of it. And then he went 7-6. So I can't imagine he's made much distance one way or the other.
I'm just wondering if I got to update my priors about him, because like I thought he was probably, I mean, we joked, but I wasn't joking that Bobby Petrino was going to be Arkansas's head coach by like week 9 last year. And, he's, the fact that he's still there, I guess are we going to bail on what we were saying back then? Is he just waiting to be moved into the master suite? Or like, are these guys just enjoying a kind of productive relationship? And Arkansas wasn't bad last year and could be fine again. And he's banked a lot of goodwill because of how much he just loves that place and what he did for them after the Chad Morris disaster. So I only have him down at 10, but it's fair. He's old and older. Yeah.
If they go 7-6 again, I think they do it.
Okay. There's a point. It's an interesting gap.
Yeah.
Interesting gap. Okay.
I think they do it.
Our friends at Home Field, who, if they sell enough shirts, could perhaps help some of these schools pay major buyout obligations over the course of the year, have big, and I do mean big, plans for the upcoming football season. More details soon from them and from us. But in the meantime, you should go to homefieldapparel.com and check out all of the great collections and selections on offer and use the code SZD20 for 20% off your first order. Home Field, by the way, going to be on site when we are in Raleigh on August 23rd at the Sports Podcast Festival. We're headlining, you, me, Godfrey, along with several other great shows. You should come meet us. We've added our friend Matt Brown of Extra Points to that lineup. It's all at the Rialto on week 0 Saturday in Raleigh. Go to therialto.com, therialto.com. Use the code SPF25 to get a buy one, get one half off deal. And bring a friend or a partner or whoever. we'll have a wonderful time. Richard, we roll on to Blacksburg, Virginia. Brent Pry.
Look, as rough as I think the situation is maybe in Virginia, I don't know that it's orders of magnitude better in Blacksburg. I have Brent Pry 18.
Adam 16.
Yeah, it's a what are we doing here kind of thing.
Well, I think what they're doing is giving him a put up or shut up kind of season. This is his 4th year. They are doing 2 new coordinators after a year of huge disappointment. Remember how we were talking about them, we and everybody else at this time last year. I don't think they're as bad as the 6-6 that they put out last year. And I'm not completely done with Kyron Drones yet either, though they may or may not be.
I mean, Kyron Drones maybe. Well, no, there were teams that swung on Kyron Drones to try to get him in to the portal in January. He did not, but it was a weird year for him last year with the injuries, and it was weird.
No, it was weird. They also have a hard schedule this year. A hard ACC schedule. It just works out kind of hard for them. And they have the other half of the Vandy series. Granted, that one's at home this time. And they have the Beamer Bowl with South Carolina, which is going to be good too. So you don't have to imagine very hard how this could go left for Brent Pry. I'm surprised that it's gone as poorly as it has so far. Not completely out on it yet, but I mean, Virginia Tech is not that far away from just not being perceived as being that relevant in college football anymore. And that's not acceptable to them.
Virginia Tech is borderline irrelevant. You are,
and they can't have much more of that. Although the video game having Enter Sandman in it could bring them back somewhat culturally. I'm not even kidding. You're laughing, but I'm completely serious. That's the kind of thing that could improve their public standing.
I think Virginia, a Michael Vick undefeated season at Norfolk, and we got something cooking. In
Norfolk. Yeah. That would be interesting. So you're saying that they need to not lose at Old Dominion?
No, I'm saying Michael Vick goes undefeated at Norfolk State.
Oh, I get it.
I think we may be cooking with gas.
Oh, so I forgot that he got hired there.
Yes,
I was being a smartass.
Yeah.
I thought you were mistaking Blacksburg for the fine port city of Norfolk, Virginia. Shame on me. You got my ass. But actually, it's funny that we should mention it because Ricky Ronnie at ODU is next on this list.
Where do you have him? I'm looking at my list. 10, and that's probably too low.
I think it is a little. I have him at 17. I guess there's a bull case for him that things could be okay. Their best player, Jason Henderson, linebacker, is back this year after missing essentially all of last year. Yeah, remember after we had our little discussion on this show, which, by the way, Ricky Ronnie was asked about and spoke very negatively about this podcast at a preseason press conference, by the way. In the season opener, he got hurt against South Carolina, and he just redshirted. He did not come back. He is, despite my view of Old Dominion's accounting of assisted tackles, he is one of the best players in the country on defense, certainly in the G5. And he's back to help their defense, and that's huge for them. But you just have to think about where they are. Like, this is season 5 for him, but it's really like year 6 kind of operating the program because they didn't play in the COVID year.
Yeah.
They have invested a substantial chunk of change in facilities, actually AD wide, not just in football. They're doing a big baseball project right now, but they have put money into infrastructure at Old Dominion. And, it's been 11 years now in FBS. The transition coach, Bobby Wilder, he got 6 years and a 42.5% win rate. Ronnie is at 4 years and 400, and they could fire him for about $1 million this season. He's shuffled through a whole bunch of coordinators. Just seems like it's getting late for Ricky Ronnie at Old Dominion, if you asked me. 2 Penn State guys in the state of Virginia that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I got the buyer's remorse on how low I had it. I think you're right on that one.
That's fair because you gave me a little bit of buyer's remorse on a couple of these as well. Lincoln Riley, USC.
Yeah, I have Lincoln in that pack with BK and Billy Napier. Again, it can hit, and if it doesn't, we know how this is going. But it can hit. I think they've been doing some interesting things in NIL. Chad Bowden comes over from Notre Dame. They really beef up the backroom staff. It seems like, and they've turned a leaf over as far as player evaluation has been concerned, which I think is important because it means Lincoln has kind of stepped back a little bit off of taking all that on, and can Lincoln be more of a capital F, capital C football coach this season? Maybe we have something at USC.
Agree with all of that. I have him at 5. I just really don't think they're firing him unless they do something drastic, like miss a bowl. Like they have to be terrible. I think they are very bought in on him, more so than a lot of people in our industry seem to think. Like the people at USC who matter think he's a visionary and like a proper program builder, and that he's going to lead them back to at least the college football playoff. That's what I've been told.
Okay, all right.
I think that he has like substantial believers there, including Jen Cohen.
You're the boots on the ground there in LA.
Yeah, no, I think they believe in him. I am not 100% sure how much he believes in them, but they've given him stuff. Like they've given him the front office infrastructure that you just talked about. I don't think he likes being in a city with a million sports writers who are very hard to control. I've heard that from a number of people over the years.
Well, I think
he tried that in Norman, and you can sort of get away with it only because of the power that Oklahoma has there. But even there, it's pretty hard because reporters don't like that, and you really just can't do it in LA. And he gets mad about stuff. I've been told a couple of times that like he hated last year. Remember when they had the TMZ issue with their quarterback after the first game of the season?
Oh yes, yeah.
Like that really stuck in his craw, and like that's a USC thing, you know.
Like TMZ's not, and well, North Carolina notwithstanding, TMZ's not really sniffing around a lot of college football programs.
No, and granted, I don't think that as a general rule, I don't think TMZ's sniffing around USC football, but it was kind of microcosmic of what we're talking about there.
Well,
also, I think one sign that they believe in him, Richard, is I think they're going to let him murder or at least pause the Notre Dame rivalry, which I'm kind of shocked they're allowing based on USC's sense of its own importance in the history of the sport.
Has there been an announcement there that I missed? Or is it just, just reacting to the chatter?
I'm just reading what's happening and what he said publicly and what we're still waiting for, which is a renewal of that series.
Got it. Okay.
It is possible he goes to the NFL. That's why he's not lower on my list. I mean, he's always going to be in demand because everyone knows how much he knows about offense. But I think they believe in him. Mark Stoops, Kentucky.
Mark Stoops at 13, just because I could see a dead cat bounce from Mark Stoops, but I don't really. Do you know who Kentucky's starting quarterback is going to be this year?
Do you?
Yes. It is going to.
Honestly, I haven't done my SEC preview prep. I forget.
It is going to knock your socks off.
All right, I'm going to know as soon as you say it. Go ahead.
It's Zach Calzada.
Yep. After his FCS stops.
Yes.
Stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop. At
Back from like Incarnate Word, right?
Yeah. And he was balling at Incarnate Word. So like I get it. But kind of.
Yeah. They're hoping for a Cam Ward situation.
Yeah.
It's the cradle of quarterbacks.
So I say all that to say, like Mark Stoops dead cat bounce. Look, man, I've seen weirder things in the sport before.
I have him at 4. Because
wow. Okay.
But I also, this is one where I might get buyer's remorse hearing you have him at 13. So I talked to one person who said pretty strongly that he needs to have a big year to stick around. But I don't think I fully believe that because of his contract. Like just to kind of take you inside how I react to when I ask people questions about these coaches. Remember all those auto extensions he racked up by being pretty good over the years at Kentucky? I mean, it would have been 40 plus million to fire him at the end of last season. I think it'll still be in the neighborhood of 30 to do it this year, which that would be like the second biggest buyout ever paid in college football. I don't know if Kentucky does that for football.
Oh, I would not.
And I strongly suspect that they do not do it for basically anything in the first year of House. I mean, I don't know.
One thing about Kentucky is Kentucky is like Arkansas, where like don't question if they got it or not because they got it.
They'll prove to you that they've got it.
Don't question if they got it.
But despite all of that, I mean, this is possibly going to be 4 years in a row of a pretty harsh trend downward. I guess there's a possibility that at some point he's made so much money that he just calls it and does like a nice little negotiated settlement with them. Like that's happened. That happened with Paul Chryst. That happened with Tom Allen in Power 2 jobs the last few years. Like maybe, but that's a big chunk of change for Mark Stoops It's a lot of money. I put him lower here than I was told to by the person who I thought was best positioned to give me a view of Mark Stoops, because I was just looking at the contract. But if you think you should threaten Kentucky and say they don't have it and they'll prove that they have it, then maybe I should put them higher on the list.
Don't question whether Kentucky's got it.
All right. All right.
Brent Venables. I have Brent Venables pretty high here. But, so I have Brent Venables 17. The same things about Brent that apply to Brian Kelly, Lincoln Riley, and Billy Napier apply to Brent Venables, in that they hit their potential, they can be pretty good. The question is, or the thing is, I think Oklahoma is further away from hitting that ceiling and hitting that potential than I do USC, Florida, or LSU. That, and I don't think you hire Jim Nagy to be your GM thinking that you will be firing Jim Nagy and throwing the entire baby out with the bathwater in 10 months.
I think if it's close, if it's anywhere near the border, they're going to be very, very motivated not to fire him and them.
Yeah, I think Jim Nagy,
they want this to work really bad.
Yeah, but I think Jim Nagy outlasts Brent Venables in this job.
Perhaps
that's
so.
just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, their contracts, they gave him, they must have given him several years to go and do that job. This is another huge buyout. I'm sure Oklahoma would pay it. It'd be 30 plus. If it was bad enough, I'm sure they would. But I think they'd like to see him succeed. Like, I think they're just very motivated and where that matters, when of course every team wants to succeed. What I'm talking about specifically is if it's an edge case, I think they'd like to see the build for a second year of those two guys together, Venables and Nagy, running the program. But I have him at 12, in part because it is a pretty large buyout. Again, it would be the second biggest ever. And yes, they'd pay it if they had to, but it's a big number. And just because I think they'd like to see out how this works with these couple of guys together, Venables and Nagy.
Yeah. Two guys to go. Justin Wilcox. I got Justin Wilcox very high. I got Justin Wilcox 16, right behind Venables. I think the same GM stuff applies to Justin Wilcox as it does to Brent Venables. You've given Ron Rivera a lot of power. Ron Rivera is not going anywhere after 1 year where they just go 4-8. Entire roster has pretty much been looted by the transfer portal, including their best players, plural. It's not looking great.
Agree. I'm even less optimistic. I have this at 22. They kind of blew it by giving him a big extension under their now exited athletic director, Jim Knowlton, after they went 5-7 in 2021. Not a lot of extensions being handed out after 5-7s, but Cal did it. Now there'd only be 2 years left on the deal if they fired him this year or at the end of this year. The Rivera thing, he did not sign up to not even be in charge of his own football program. He did not sign up to be an ACC coach. They didn't sign him up to be an ACC coach either. He's hired guys with reputations for being extremely difficult to work with, in Brian Harsin and Nick Rolovich, Harsin being the more important of those. And then there was a portal exodus on their offense in the spring. It just all screams that we are done here. And I thought about putting him actually first on my list or 23rd on my list, but there was one coach who I felt more strongly we're about to see the last of that I had to put over him. But I think we're close to done with Justin Wilcox and Cal as we sit here today.
Dead cat bounce of all dead cat bounces, I think, will be coming in Salt Lake City for Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes. I have him 5 on my list.
Okay, this is our biggest gap by far.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Because I haven't really been keeping track of yours, so I didn't know where you were going to have him.
I have him 23.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah, man. This one, you've scared me a bit. I was hoping you were going to have him higher on the list, to be honest with you. I'm pretty confident in assessing that a lot of people in agenting world think he's going to call it after this year and move into the athletic department as a sort of an ambassador.
I think agenting world has been trying to speak Kyle Whittingham out of his job.
I thought that too.
4 years.
They have.
Agenting world love to look at Utah and say that.
They do. But here's the funny thing about this one. That job's filled. They have a coach in waiting. There's nothing to gain. There's nobody that you're going to install in that job who's not Morgan Scalley, who is the appointed coach in waiting, the first one in a while that we've had in college football. I did have that exact thought because you've heard bullshit like that for a long time. Dude, he's acting like a guy who feels pressure in this job. Like Andy Ludwig was his guy, a Whittingham guy, coordinator. They canned him midseason last year. They ditched the younger Wilson quarterback for Devin Dampier from New Mexico, who's good, who comes in with Jason Beck, the new offensive coordinator. But the point was like, no, you don't get to just like stick with this pedigree Utah guy who's like part of the big Utah football community. Like you're gonna go and bring in a guy from New Mexico who you don't really know, who's going to come in with this coordinator. They are getting lapped, Richard, absolutely lapped in recruiting by BYU and in the paying of players. And that might be hard to address because it's been explained to me by people in Utah that Utah has sort of like a nice bit of money, but BYU has like the Mormon money cannon.
Yeah. BYU got money.
And like Utah is a bunch, it's all Mormons, don't get me wrong. The Utah as well. But there's a different type of money that pours into BYU. Most notably lately, actually it's happened in both football and basketball. They've gotten mega historically good recruits for them in just the last couple of months, weeks even, in both.
It's the owner of the Jazz and the hockey team.
The Mammoth.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, they just picked a new name.
Oh, they picked a new. Okay.
They did like Utah Hockey Club for a year. Ryan Smith is the name of this guy, though. I'm familiar with who you're talking about. Yeah. I had him at 23. I just think, and it's not just exclusively like, oh, agents think Utah's going to make a change. It's just someone walked me through kind of everything that happened at Utah in the last year or two, and I think it fits together into a very cohesive narrative that he's going to call it after this year. But
I think this is a classic down and out Utah year, and they scrabble it to 8-4.
Didn't we say like each of the last 2 years, like, oh, we're at risk of underrating Utah, but
one of them, yes, but I think the quarterback situation, offensive situation in general, but quarterback situation, injury situation, all that sort of stuff is not as dire as it has been the last couple of years.
Okay, well, this is interesting to me. So we've done 23 coaches, and for the most part, on I would say 18 of them, we seem to be seeing them pretty much the same way. There are some big gaps, and this is by far the biggest one. Let's see how the season develops. This is kind of a snapshot in time, more than it's outright predictions. But I do feel, as I sit here today, that I'd be pretty surprised if Kyle Whittingham did not call it after this year. Don't tell him I said that, though. Man, you should only say things on this podcast that you would say to someone's face, but I don't think I would tell this to Kyle's face. He's a scary guy. He could still kick both of our asses and probably the asses of most of his players. So, Kyle, if you're listening to this, don't look for me in public. I'm just the wind. I'm not a guy.